Alright, I'm back again with another PS4 video this time. I grabbed 10 games off my shelf that I think are worth highlighting, games that I enjoy myself a lot. This is not really a top 10 video, it's just a list of 10 games that I think are worth looking into. Like if you never heard of these games, check them out if they sound like something you would enjoy. Um, Now, in the title, I use the word underappreciated. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that these are games that some of them are very highly reviewed, some of them are quite well known as well. So these are not all obscure games by any means. Some of them are a bit obscure, but most of them aren't. These are just games that they came and they went. People played them, cool, but I don't really see much talk about them anymore. So just highlighting some older games. Let's start off with a game that will amuse some people and maybe enrage some people, because I forced a bunch of people to play Chariot with me, and some of them didn't really like it, which is unfortunate. I have a soft spot for Chariot. Now, this is a platformer, a very unique and different style of platformer. You control these two characters if you're playing co-op, and just one of them if you're playing solo. So this is a rare example of a PS4 game that has been designed for couch co-op. That's a throwback to the old days of the PS2 and the PS3, even the PS1 and other consoles in those time periods. Not that many couch co-op games around anymore, so if you're looking for one, Chariot may be something to look into. So yeah, this is a platformer where you control these characters, but it is the Chariot itself that is the main character here almost. So you're pulling and pushing this Chariot and trying to maneuver it through these levels. The level design gets very complicated very quickly. Some of the levels it took me and someone, a friend of mine who played this with me, sometimes over an hour, maybe even an hour and a half to get through. There are lots of challenges and hidden areas and gems to pick up. So if you're going for runs where you're trying to do all these different challenges, some of which are very difficult, it can take a lot of time to get through the levels. The levels are quite interesting, lots of variety. Some are very fast, some are very slow, some have enemies in them. Those are the most annoying ones, because some of the enemy types are really annoying. But just a fun platformer with a very unique idea, just pulling and pushing this Chariot. And you cannot collect anything by yourself. You always have to collect things with the Chariot. So you have to get the Chariot up into really awkward positions and spaces to pick up some of the items in a game, right? So Chariot, if you're looking for a platformer, looking for a couch co-op game, something worth checking out. This physical edition is an early one by Limited Run Games. It's number 53, so it has been sold out a long time ago, but I don't think it's too expensive. And obviously you can also get it digitally as well, which is probably a cheaper option. Right, next up, I try to go for multiple different genres. All of these games are quite different from one another. This is, again, a very different one. This is Chernobylite, which is one of the more recent games. This was only released a couple of years ago. And it's an FPS game, first-person shooter, set in the Chernobyl region in Ukraine, in that area in Eastern Europe. And it's not the greatest FPS ever released, but if you're looking for something somewhat similar to Stalker or Metro, this is a very different game from both of those, which I will go into detail in just a second. But if you're looking for a slower paced, more tactical first-person shooter, Chernobylite is not the worst option out there. Now, a lot of people compare this to Stalker, which is kind of inaccurate. It's not even close to Stalker, because Stalker is an open world game and this is not. So This has a hub area, and from there you have a mission select screen. You can go into different regions, and all of the regions have this, like, they are not that big. They are these smaller areas that you explore. In terms of a Metro comparison, there are some similarities. If you like, this has the Stalker Metro feel to it, like you're exploring these very rural Eastern European looking areas. There are anomalies, something like you would see in Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker the movie, which has obviously inspired all of these games that I've mentioned, at least in part. And it has this very unnerving atmosphere to it. It is quite scary as well at times. So it has horror elements to it as well. But Metro is more linear than Chernobylite, at least the early games. I haven't played Exodus, that's more open-ended, I think. But yeah, Chernobylite, I was just rambling on a bit there, lost my train of thought, but an alright FPS. I was quite impressed by this. Also, a game that was developed by quite a small team, so it is. I always appreciate it when a small team of people manage to do something like this good. Is it the most polished game out there? No, not by any means. The areas, you play the same areas over and over again, so it does get quite repetitive near the end. The storyline is quite non-existent, and the missions get quite repetitive also, but it's like a 15 to 20 hour experience, or maybe 12 to 20 hour experience, and for that I think it's worth checking out. Next up, this is by far the most high profile game on this list. This is a Sony released or a Sony published game, Concrete Genie. Now, it is truly sad that this game was not more successful than it was. Like, I don't think this sold very well at all. As I said, published by Sony, but they didn't really market it that much. It came and it went. The people who played it enjoyed it a lot. The developer Pixel Opus was closed down by Sony, which is unfortunate as well. So nothing new coming from that team, at least under that name. I don't know what they're up to now, the individual people, but yeah. Concrete Genie is a third-person platformer puzzle game, sometimes a stealth game. It is somewhat similar to the old PC and PS2 era title Mark Echo's Getting Up, which is a graffiti painting platforming game. So in this game, you control this young boy who paints walls, not like a red wall, but he does street art, and you go around painting all the different walls, and then the paintings come to life. There are these different monsters that appear, and you solve puzzles by utilizing different types of monsters. And the art style is fantastic. Just look at these. Like this is the type of stuff that you would paint on the walls, and you don't have to have any artistic talent at all. All of these are pre-rendered, so you just pick which monster you want to use, and then you can paint like flowers and trees and all different kinds of items and shapes to make these different like murals on the walls. Very colorful, very pretty to look at. The storyline is basically like this small town is run down and it's covered by darkness, and you have to like paint all these walls with these bright colors to brighten up the town and bring life back into it. So it's a very positive and fun storyline. Also has themes like bullying in it and this sort of thing with the young main character. So there's quite a bit of depth to it. The storyline is pretty fun. The gameplay is very, very enjoyable. I liked running around the area. It's a very restricted game in a sense. It's not an open world game at all. It has these small hub based levels that are quite interesting to explore. Lots of collectibles as well, so it's kind of like a collectathon as well. Definitely worth checking out. Next up, a genre that a lot of people aren't really familiar with, but I think is worth highlighting, though. So shoot 'em ups. And Jin Feveron is a very well-known game within this genre, so this is not a hidden gem by any means. It's by Cave, who is one of the more popular developers. And this port was made by M2 Shot Triggers, who are the main people porting these older shooters to modern systems. But now, why did I pick up Jin Feveron? Just because I want to highlight how amazing this game is. That's it. Also, I think that this is a game that people who aren't really into shoot 'em ups or bullet hells, like this is a bullet hell style game. I think this is a game that a lot of people would appreciate just because of the art style and the music. So as you can probably guess from the title, Jin Feveron, this is a disco themed game. So lots of disco style music in it and just explosions of color. It's a very colorful and energetic and exciting game. Not the most difficult, but not the easiest either. So somewhere in the middle. I think this is a great place to start if you're looking for a way into the bullet hell genre. There are many different shoot 'em ups that are better for starters or for beginners, but they aren't really bullet hells. Like I would suggest something like Skyforce Anniversary or maybe Super Hydra or some of the original games in the Gradius series, something like that. Those are more beginner friendly. But for a shoot 'em up title, this is a very beginner friendly game. Very short, very fun. The gameplay is great. The port is fantastic. The controls, the responsive controls are just fantastic in this release. Now, this is the PS4 version released by Limited Run Games, sold out long ago, probably quite expensive to get, but digitally you can get it for much cheaper again. Right, next up, this is probably the best reviewed game on this in this video. This is Desperados III, a very successful game by a developer that I think they originally started as doing Kickstarter. The first game that they released was Shadow Tactics. The first game in this style, at least, was Shadow Tactics. That was a massive Kickstarter success back in the day. Also a fantastic game. It's very similar to this one, but has a samurai ninja theme to it. And this is, as you can tell by the title, the third game in the Desperados series. Now, those who are a bit older like me remember the Desperados games, the old PC strategy games. And Mimimi Studios, I think a German developer, they got the rights to do the third one. So this is basically a reboot of the series. Now, as I said, this is a high-profile game, very successful, at least for being such a niche game in terms of genre. But I just wanted to highlight this game because the developer, I think, have closed down. They didn't go out of business, but they just announced that they won't be making games anymore, which is very unfortunate because Shadow Tactics, this one and the third one that they made, which I haven't played, these are all very well-reviewed games, and for fans of this type of game, which is a real-time strategy stealth combination, these were a godsend because this genre has been completely just out of the picture for years and years and years. Not that many games like this out there anymore. So these are real-time strategy games in which you control just a couple of individual people who have all different kinds of abilities and strengths and weaknesses. And you are going through these massive levels. Some of these levels took me hours to get through, playing like a completionist style, full on stealth, no alerts, and eliminating all the enemies, doing all the side missions. Very big and intricate levels. And well, you are desperados, you are outlaws, and you well, the storyline is a very typical Western storyline. It's a revenge story, basically. And you have all these different characters. You have a trapper, you have your typical gunslinger, you have a sniper, all of these different characters, and you use them and their abilities in combination to get through the levels as stealthily as you can and doing all the missions. And yeah, Desperados 3, if you haven't checked this out, check it out. This physical edition, at least when I last checked, was quite cheap to get as well. So not the worst one out there to look for to add into your own collection. Right, next up, another game that is completely different from any of the other ones here. This is Forager, which is an indie game that is kind of like a lighter version of something like the game, what is it called? Is it Factorium or something like that? It's one of these games in which you collect materials and you craft these crafting tables and this machinery. And the further on you get in a game, you get more and more automation, and you build kind of this like a factory with all these different machines working in tandem. So you are gathering materials and building new machines, and then building new machines out of those. And just this is a very good game if you're looking for something to use as background noise when listening to a podcast, for example. You start off on an island. You have your pickaxe or whatever, an axe, or I can't remember what you start with, and just one island, and you start chopping down some trees and cracking open some rocks, and you craft items and get some money, and then you buy another island that has some new types of items in it, and you just keep up building this like empire that you start just from one single island. And in the end, it gets crazy. You have thousands and thousands of items getting built automatically at the same time, and you're kind of like just maintaining your production lines. Yeah, it's a really fun game if you're into these sort of like builders and crafting games. Next up, another completely different type of game. This is Matterfall. One of the games that unfortunately didn't sell too well for Housemarque. So this is developed by the Finnish developer Housemarque, also known for games like Nex Machina, and probably the best known for the Super Stardust games in the PS3 era, and recently for Returnal on the PS5. So they made Returnal the Sony exclusive game. And this is one of the games in the middle of their career, or their development, the games that they've developed. And one of the reasons why they stopped doing these arcade style shooters didn't probably sell too well, which is unfortunate. This is a really, really good like twin stick shooter style, arcade style shooter, side scrolling game. Very good level design, like lots of stuff to discover in there, lots of different environments. As you can see from the back cover, very colorful, very nice to look at. The controls are fantastic. The enemy designs, everything about this game is just good. It's just a good game overall, and I think it's criminal that it didn't do better than it did. Like, this is probably one of the highest recommendations that I have on this list, and probably also one of the more obscure titles. Even if it's developed by a really a well-known developer, I think this game deserves more attention, definitely. Matterfall also has a very good soundtrack. I can't remember the name of the people or the person who composed it, but a really talented guy who has worked with Housemarque, I think, in multiple games. Right, 3 more games here. Let's start off with a really strange combination of a farming simulator and action game. So this is Sakuna of Rise and Ruin. In one of those PS4 collection videos that I did, I talked very highly of this game, and I thought I'd highlight it again because it deserves it. The cover art, first of all, is really good. The colors tell a lot about the game already. It has this very grounded, different shades of light brown as the colors, and that fits well with the game overall. So this is a rice farming simulator combined with a side-scrolling like an action platformer. You have this farm, and you're trying to build up the farm, get more people to come to your farm, to live there, and the side characters are very well written. This is a very warm game. All of the characters are very they have very unique personalities, and they are very fun to interact with. And you're farming rice, and it takes a long time. So it fell. It takes a long time to farm your rice. You have to work on a field, you have to plant it, you have to check on the water levels, and try to keep an eye on the temperatures of the water and all of this. It is a surprisingly deep farming simulator. It's not something like Harvest Moon where you just put seeds in the ground and then you wait a couple of in-game days and then you get the crops. You have to really work to get your rice right, and depending on how you farm your rice, you get very different results as well. So there are multiple different types of rice, depending on how much water you have in your fields, when you drain the fields, how you after you collect the rice from the fields, how you put them up to dry, and all of these different things matter. So it's a very surprisingly deep and intricate system. And then you also have this action platformer side where you are going through these different levels, gathering materials and doing all these different side missions. And it's a long game as well. It's almost 30 or maybe even 40 hours if you do all the stuff in it. So lots of value for money here, and definitely a game that I think is worth checking out. This was also a quite highly reviewed game, but I don't know how well it did in terms of sales. I hope it did well, but it deserves more sales. It deserves more notoriety. Right. Also, as you can see from the screen, it has a 16 plus age rating, so it is not the storyline gets quite dark at times. So it is also not just this kind of childish farming simulator game. It has a proper storyline to it as well. Right, and from that we can very naturally jump to Songbird Symphony. Which is a very cheap game. In Europe, at least, you can get this for less than 10 euros, this physical release. And for the quality of game, that's a really good deal. This is a rhythm game 2D platformer. The platforming is very simple. This is definitely a game that a young kid could appreciate, probably. But it's also quite challenging. Some of the rhythm game sections get quite complicated. So this is a game where you go around, you control this little bird, and there is a mystery, and you have to. I don't want to spoil anything about the storyline. The storyline is pretty funny, and just serves its purpose. But you go around platforming and like doing some light puzzles, and then all of the boss fights are these massive like musical numbers that are rhythm games, and those are the main reason why I picked this game for this video, because those boss fights are really, really well designed and really fun. This is again like Concrete Genie and something like Sakuna. This is just a fun game, just a warm game with lots of personality and lots of very unique ideas. I haven't really seen musical number boss fights in many games. Funnily enough, one of the games that pops into mind is Lollipop Chainsaw with some of the boss fights, but this is obviously not nothing like that game. Yeah, Songbird Symphony, worth checking out if you're into the smaller indie type games that are just light puzzles, light platforming, just a fun time. Probably the shortest after Jin Feveron, the shortest game on this list. Also, maybe 5 or 6 hours. So if you're looking for something smaller to play, that is definitely something worth looking for. Now, lastly, I have here, like, this is my favorite game out of all of these 10. And I've talked about this multiple times. I always, when I get the chance, I mention this game. And this is the Sexy Brutal, which has one of the worst names for a video game probably ever. Not appealing at all. And it is such a shame because this is such a fantastic game. It is a time warp murder mystery puzzle game with this very unique looking art style from isometric viewpoint, and has some of the best music on the PS4. Let's just get that out of the way. This physical also comes with the soundtrack CD, which is fantastic. So there is the physical soundtrack CD. Also has a manual here. I'll flip through it. I probably flipped through this in the PS4 collection video, but you can see here the character designs look so fantastic. The art style is so fantastic. So what you're doing in this game is that you are in this casino like leisure area that is called the Sexy Brutal, and you are trying to figure out a way to stop all of the people in the casino from getting assassinated. So there is an assassin killing customers, and you are trying to figure out how to stop them. And there is a time limit, a clock for you to try to figure out how to stop a murder, and then it resets. It goes back in time, and you go back in time, and eventually you are supposed to figure out a way to stop all of the assassinations during one run. So you have to learn where all the characters are at which times, how to stop the murders. There are these puzzles related to them, and you have to figure out the sequence of events and how to stop that. And it is an incredibly well-designed game in all regards. The level design is fantastic, the music is fantastic, the character designs are fantastic, the art style is absolutely gorgeous. The gameplay itself is very addicting, and it's a game that I got lost into. I think I finished it in like 2 or 3 sittings or sessions. What does sitting even mean? It's not. That's just a bad translation. Whatever. Yeah, the Sexy Brutal. Also a game that was very highly regarded by the YouTuber Total Biscuit. That's one of the reasons why I bought this originally. Like, he highlighted this in one of his videos, which is still up in YouTube. You can go watch that as well if you want to. And I picked it up because of him, and because it got the physical release on PS4. I had to get it, and it was worth the money and so much. Like, it's so good. It's so I can't even do justice to this game. Just, it's one of the best PS4 games, one of the best games of this generation, by far. Just an incredible game. Right, so let's end there. 30 minutes. It took a bit longer than I thought it would, but yeah, these are 10 games on the PS4 that I think, obviously, these are also available on, some of these at least, are on multiple different systems, Xbox, PC, and so on, Switch as well. So check some of these games out if you're interested in them. I think all of these are fantastic and definitely worth your time and money. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.